Oh man, Fantom is trying to bounce from a key level flat on the day despite Bitcoin being down almost 3%, digesting the Tesla news. We've also had the ECB come out with their first rate hike in 11 years. The initial jobless claims have just shown that the employment market is starting to soften. Loads to digest here. What are the key levels in the charts? What is most likely to happen here on the Fantom and Bitcoin prices? We're going to head straight to the charts, guys. Smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. As always, if you want to buy or trade any of these cryptos, you can do so using BYBIT or BitGet. Links in the description. Claim your bonuses and trade on these moves as well. Now, as you can see here with Fantom, we saw our bearish divergence yesterday. We covered that off on the channel. Congratulations to those of you who took profits at these levels, because since then you had a big retracement all the way down to our next level support, and we bounced perfectly on this horizontal level of support at 30 cents. Now the question is, we need direction. We need direction from Bitcoin to say, yep, have we got the green light to go and do this, or are we going to start playing out our bearish scenario again? So Fantom is perfectly poised. It's showing really good relative strength to the market right now. You can see it's flat, slightly green here, up 0.2% of the time of recording, versus Bitcoin, which is down 2.8%, right? So this is good relative strength and shows that if Bitcoin's ready to head to the upside, Fantom will continue to soar, just like we saw how it did on those couple of days there where they had a big move to the upside. You will get some really nice trading opportunities on Fantom here. Now, what's going on with Bitcoin? Well, if we take a look here on the hourly chart on Bitcoin, we got rejected from exactly that 24,000 mark. It was no coincidence, right? Really important level. And a lot of people saying, oh, that's to do with Tesla. No, actually, we started getting rejected just before the Tesla news. And then the Tesla news took us a little bit more down. For those who aren't familiar, you can watch my video from yesterday where Tesla dumped their Bitcoin. We were one of the first channels to break that out literally minutes after the Tesla earnings. We jumped onto a live stream. We dissected exactly what happened. And we figured out it was done just to dress up the earnings. And you know, the arguments made about environmental concerns are pretty much, I mean, ridiculous. I mean, I can just put a nail in the coffin of that by just saying, look, he still hasn't sold his Dogecoin. He still promotes Dogecoin and uses it for Tesla payments, and yet Dogecoin is arguably about the same, if not slightly worse, pound for pound in terms of its environmentally friendliness. So to put this into context, Bitcoin, which powers the whole network, you can imagine how much adoption Bitcoin has, uses the energy of a country like Thailand. Dogecoin, which is still considered a meme coin and a bit of a cultural coin right now, with very little utility relative to Bitcoin, you have to be fair in saying that, already uses the same energy as El Salvador. So this whole ESG argument is just a load of rubbish. He sold because he needed the cash flow to make his company earnings look really, really better than they were, okay? And that is why they didn't have to show that negative 400 million free cash flow loss. And also, the other thing is he didn't want to market the impairment, okay? He would have had to put in a negative 400 million for the write down in Bitcoin, okay? So that's to do with the accounting rules, which is really important to understand. Anyway, enough about that. The market's absorbed it. We can handle it. It's happened, right? He did it whenever he did it, when Bitcoin was at 29,000, and we crashed down to 17,600, but we're showing some strength now. We're trying desperately to get this pattern to play out. Now, what we can see here, let's just recap where we're at. So I don't want people to get confused on where in this journey we're at. We've fallen hugely down to these levels. We bear flagged in here. We managed to reverse and get the breakout to the upside, which is great. But we got rejected from the next key level, which was 24,000, which we already had marked out. And you can see now we're heading to the downside. So the question now is, are we going to come all the way down to get that retest at that 22,000 mark, that green line there at the top of the channel? Or are we going to fall back into this pattern? If we fall back into this pattern, then things are going to get pretty bad, guys. Then 17,600 is back in play, and even lower price points are in play in line with some of the on-chain metrics and some of the other pricing models, which I've shared with you, which seem to suggest we could get one more low just to flush out the weak hands and capitulation. And speaking of capitulation, I've got a lot of people who are saying, oh, the bottom is in and everything's looking fine. I just want to put this into perspective. Blockchain.com cuts 25% of its workforce. Now, why is this important? Well, they were citing the 3AC as a big concern for them, and one of the reasons they're in such a difficult position right now. Now, Contagion is not over. Anybody who's saying Contagion is done, and no, we're not done, right? And there's going to be more news articles coming out, more exchanges, more lending platforms which are struggling due to this crash. They're just managing to survive a little bit longer than Voyager, Celsius, and some of these others. They're able to patch things together. But the pain of that will show over time, and we'll see that, particularly if Bitcoin wants to sit at these low levels for 6 months or so, these companies will struggle. They're hoping and betting on the fact that Bitcoin runs to the upside. I mean, here's another example, right? A small exchange, but nonetheless, still Contagion. Thai SEC asked ZipMex to clarify withdrawal freeze because they stopped their withdrawals as well, okay? So this Contagion is still here, and we need to pay some respect to it. Okay, let's take a look here at the Fantom chart again and remind ourselves, what are we doing? So what we've done, if you want to look at it in this format, we were in this broadening rising wedge, and you can see we broke to the downside, managed to recapture it and get back to the inside of this wedge. Now we're getting this fall to the downside. If I bring out the EMA ribbon, you can see here we're right in the midst of our EMA ribbon here. So what you don't want to do is see that happen, because then all that means is this whole rally here was just getting rejected by an EMA ribbon, right? Which would be horrible. And I warned about that. Similarly for Bitcoin. Why was I so adamant about that 24,000 level? Exactly for this reason, right? If this plays out like this, it's going to look obvious, right? Oh, look, we just got rejected by our EMA ribbon. It's obvious, right? The bears continue to be in control. That's why, despite all of this excitement, and we can trade this excitement, you guys can trade it, there's no issues with that, you have to respect that the bears are in control. Until we got the close of the EMA ribbon, which we nearly did yesterday, it hasn't happened. So you've got to let the data lead you. Don't let your emotions lead you. Don't let people tweeting, oh, we're going to the moon, we're going to 48,000 in the next couple of weeks. Like, don't let that fool you, right? Follow the data and trade or invest alongside the data. So if this is your long-term portfolio, great. Wait for the pullback, get some more dollar cost averaging in. You've got more time to accumulate. So I'm not complaining. I'm happy with more time to accumulate. From a trading perspective, you just hang fire now to wait to see, what does Bitcoin want to do? Does it want to come back into this channel, or is it going to show some strength and keep the higher highs and higher lows and try to uptrend its way out of this pattern? Similarly, let's take a look at our weekly chart here on the Bitcoin chart. And what I want to do is I want to remove the EMA ribbon. Let's remove that EMA ribbon and let's bring out the important 200-week moving average. It's your simple moving average. And you guys will know, I've covered this a few times. This line would always hold as support. And for the first time on this candle, we broke to the downside of it, and everybody was really worried, and rightfully so. Then we got our move to the upside, and we tried. Look here, intra-week, we tried. We wicked as high as here to flip this EMA back bullish, to get back above it. But again, we got rejected. There's no coincidence around these levels, guys. This EMA, this moving average, 200 weekly moving average here, is again acting like resistance, and Bitcoin's going to need a big catalyst and some big volume strength in order to break this and help us start moving back to the upside. Okay, so still a lot of work to do here on Bitcoin. A lot of people getting super excited, but we need to be patient on these key levels. Let's also take a look at the dollar index, because it's important to look at the dollar index. And part of the reason we're seeing a move here on Bitcoin over the last week or so is just because we've had a bad week on the dollar index, right? Remember, the dollar index is inversely correlated to the Bitcoin USD pair. So if the dollar index starts cooling off, you are likely to see rallies in crypto. Now, you've seen that cooling off here. If I go over to the daily candles here and bring out the EMA ribbon, all you can see is we're still in a very strong uptrend here on the dollar index. So it's not suddenly like, oh, everything's reversed. You just had a little bit of a cooling off back to its EMA ribbon, which is perfectly normal. So just like Bitcoin in the big trend is in a downtrend, the dollar index continues to be an uptrend. It's just having a cooling off within there, and Bitcoin's having the opposite. It's just having a rally within its downtrend, and Dixie's having a cooling off within its uptrend. So respect the larger time frame trend on both of these until we have evidence that these trends are reversed. So either you see Dixie start losing its daily EMA ribbon, start crossing through it like so, or you see Bitcoin crossing bullish through its EMA where we just saw it get rejected. Okay, now also European Central Bank have announced their largest interest rate hike for 11 years, and they raised more than the market was expecting. Okay, so we were expecting 0.25, it's gone up to 0.5, and that's now further suggesting that we're getting this global tightening, a global slowdown, and these recessionary fears are real, right? S&P, we're seeing we're down today here on the market. They're still worried about these recessions. They're looking at the company's earnings and they're not too excited, right? United Airlines, American Airlines, even Tesla's earnings weren't great, although they're rallying a little bit with a bit of their dressing up. I mean, their revenues came in very strong, which is why a lot of people were happy, but their gross margins were tightening. Okay, so a lot to cover off here. Your initial job figures came in at a fresh 8-month high. So what you're seeing now is the labor market is starting to tighten, which is what arguably Jerome Powell wants, right? He needs to get inflation down, and that's going to mean it's a seesaw effect. Some people will start becoming unemployed. He won't want to admit that, but that's ultimately what happens. If he goes too hard on the interest rate hikes, he'll crash it into recession. Loads of people will be unemployed. Demand will be low. Companies' earnings will stagger. And that's what the markets are really tentative and fearful of. Now, speaking of that, what are we seeing now over the next few hours? Well, what we can see here is if we head over to the SPY, you can see the SPY is trying to turn green here on the hourly charts. I mean, if we head on over to the 5 minutes, you can see the green vertical line is where we opened up here on the SPY today. Fell to the downside, had a bit of a run, fell even more to the downside, had a little bit of a run. Are we going to fall back to the downside? Are we just downtrending today? But overall, so far, at the time of recording, it's flat. And again, crypto market will be correlated to this. If the SPY wants to rotate to the downside, very likely that Bitcoin will continue to move to the downside. That's why we're seeing Bitcoin down 2% here today. So there you have it, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to smash up the like button and subscribe. If you appreciate this type of content, then let me know in the comments. Don't forget to check out BYBIT and BitGet. And if you want to deep dive into what happened with Tesla, my thoughts on whether it's good or bad, then check out the live stream we did right here.